We're here to solve this Pentominous by Serkan with a TWIX theme. Those are the only letters being used. And I'm going to, for this style of solving, I'm going to try to just use coloring and then drawing these composite things. So I'm setting it up so my tabs will give me color and then edge X. And one of the things which is an easy place to start in this puzzle is if you recognize how the X shape works, it's always going to be in a 3x3 bounding box, but anything that's near an edge is going to have to come in like this. Similarly, the X there and the X here all have pretty easy patterns, and so we can start for sure by just marking those in. And in doing so, we do a few things. We really isolate the upper left and upper right corners to now like a particular count of cells. And we also start to make some other channels in the grid, like there'll be stuff coming out here. But to get started, why don't we just start in this upper left corner. It actually has out through this cell like 8, it will have to take 9 and then some tenth below. But note, one way to think about an isolated corner is to start filling in a shape and then see where do you have a shape that can't be the same shape. And this cell here is more than 6 cells. It would be 6 cells total if we're part of yellow, so it's got to be a different shape. And in putting in that second shape, we get the first shape to complete. And we get a case where we now have these 4 cells for sure in pink. And it's touching to a U, so it can't form the same U shape with rotation here. And so going through as we would in other situations with that kind of simple approach works pretty well here. Let's do a different thing in the upper right. So in the upper right, we have 8 cells counting out to here. So this is 9, 10. And for sure, we know there's going to be an edge there. That makes this work. Again, let's start to color in some shapes. These 3 are in green. This in blue can't be part of green, so this is these cells will have to be taken. And now look at this cell here. This can't be part of this pentomino all the way over there, so it's got to be green. That fills that shape in, which fills this shape in, and we've got more progress in the grid. We're going to come back to some of these isolated cells that are going to have to be just sort of coming out. This orange quickly hits an I clue, which completes it. And this pink, you can ask yourself, could it also be an I clue? If it came and included this cell, it would be this shape. But now look at just to the right, there's going to be another forced pentomino. That will have to be 5 tall and be another touching eye. So this cell must be pink, and actually in doing that, this isolated cell must be pink. And this eye is not in pink at all. It also can't be horizontal, because it would collide with the existing one in the grid. So we get this shape and this shape in, and we'll just mark in these edges. Next place to make some potential progress is going to be in the lower right, and it's going to come from recognizing that any shape like a W, and many of the pentominoes, they have what we'll call a bounding box, like a size they fit in. So a W is a 3x3 pentomino, and so however it goes into the grid, it will always effectively have the farthest left and farthest right cell as well as the farthest up and farthest down cells within what would be a 3x3 square. So in this case, you could imagine putting, I'll just give an example pattern. You could have this as a W, but notice that that is in a 3x3 square. Or where we had like this as an option, this would be where we have this is a 3x3 square. And again, not all the cells in the 3x3 square are part of the W, but it's a key observation to help you understand what we're going to say next, which is that the eye that's just above it cannot be horizontal. If it were horizontal, you would see that the W has no potential 3x3 bounding box at all. That's not colliding straight with that eye. The eye has to be vertical, and so these 4 cells are known for sure. This last cell here, because it's isolated off the X, has to be used, and so that's the complete shape of the eye. We now can start to put in another shape, and we can ask ourselves, is this the W or not? And one reason you may want to think for yourself that it's going to be the W is in part that if it's not red, we now have forced this 3x3 bounding box, and notice that that is immediately touching another space where a W is going to have to go. And so the only way this probably works is for the W to go like this, but in doing that, the other W is going to have to sort of take some cells like this, but notice that you're isolating 3 cells, 4 cells in white, not a valid pentomino there. And so this idea of bounding boxes is key, and seeing that a 3x3 bounding box off this W is pretty constrained because it's touching another W. you run into the fact that what's starting out of this lower corner is actually that W pentomino, and we've marked that into the grid. That then gives us that there's a different shape that's growing immediately up and out. It could take this cell, we don't know for sure, but it must take these other two. And if we come back then to this W shape, there are two possibilities I see in the grid for it, and only two, and they share these four cells, and the last cell will be one of these two. And right now, where there's not yet a fourth shape for what's in orange, we don't know for sure what's in pink either, but these are good parts to put in the grid, and we actually have some good edges when we do this too. So we've got a little bit of a cutaway. We don't actually know for sure if this cell is part of the pentomino below it or part of something else, but we're getting to where we can see a few things. First, like this eye has to be vertical. That actually was probably true much sooner, but that's going to also constrain what looks to be a key pentomino right now, this T. The T has to have two bars that are 3 across for it, and one thing to say for sure is if it doesn't use this cell, it doesn't have anything but 1 bar of 3 across it can take. It needs to turn, and so it must use this cell. In doing that, it takes those 3. Now it has an option like this, but that isolates some in white, and it has this option, which looks to be the only one that's still valid. And putting that into the grid, we're going to finish the W, which finishes what's now another T over here. This pentomino in green is cleanly an I, and that means that this one here can't take this cell. It's got to take this one, so we form a V. We're going to have another pentomino starting here in blue, and let's form a last one. Let's just use another color just for kicks, one in brown. This one in blue takes one of these two cells as its last cell, so these other cells are part of what's in brown. If brown took this cell, it would be a T next to another T, so it's not that one, it's this one. And so this is the final division of the grid, and we'll mark the last edges to get the solution confirmation. So hopefully you got a sense through the solve of some of the things I look for when going through Pentominous puzzles. Again, the interface with PenPa Edit gives us lots and lots of choices, so I try to use just color in the solution, and hopefully that was a little bit useful to see how some of the regions, like the upper left and upper right corner, split apart. Saw how some of the shapes flew out. I think a key constraint in this this puzzle is understanding the concept of bounding boxes around pentominoes and this W that needs to be in a 3x3 space. It limits both the I, but then also limits its ability to be near to this other W clue. So all told, pretty interesting puzzle. Hopefully you got a sense of how to solve other pentominoes from this video, and we'll see you again soon.